morning, everybody. I'm a minute late, maybe two.
Let's just make sure my audio is working the way I think it ought to be working. AirPods. Good stuff. Comments on. Hey, Ashley, thank you for telling me the sound is good on Instagram. Live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and Instagram. I think we're good to go. Are we good to go? Let's put pause onto Ion. And let's say welcome, everybody. March 10th, 2025, episode 335. Can you believe it? Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. I'm back. So last week, I don't even remember. I think I did a show on drugs. I had surgery. And the surgery was no big deal. It was just a small oral surgery. But the anesthesia was a problem, was definitely a problem. So they put you, I thought it would be a gas mask. Isn't that what you did in the old days? Maybe you still do. I don't know. But these people shot me full of fentanyl with an IV, and I was out. I don't know, but apparently it didn't go well, and they had to Narcan me back. And it's taken me a full week plus to feel somewhat normal. I'm pretty good right now, I think. But wow, that was a weird week last week. And then I was on painkillers, and I thought I need to get a show out to you guys. And so that someone should have just told me no. Someone in my life should have said, hey, man, you're on drugs. Don't do that. But whatever, there we are. Anything happen? Anything happened while I was gone? I'm not so sure. Yeah, the whole world changed. Markets. Let's talk about markets. Markets are down. Everything is down this morning. S&P, I looked, was down. It is down 4.47% since January 20th, since Trump got inaugurated. And part of the news cycle going on right now in markets is that Trump is saying he's not interested in the markets. He doesn't even look at the markets, that we in the U.S. economy are going through a transition. What does that mean? That means that we're moving away from the free, easy money, going to the air quotes elite, going to the institutions and the rich people. You're not getting any of that free money in Dayton, Ohio, are you? You're not getting any of that at all. But we're moving away from the free money into more of a good management model and the Doge model, and that will cause volatility. It will cause pain. That seems to be his message, and that's a good thing. It sucks. It sucks in some respects that we have to do this, but it is a good thing because we just can't go on the way we are. When your business is in trouble, when you're spending way too much money, you need to cut back. You need to cut back. Take one step back so you can take two steps forward. Bitcoin crashing. Bitcoin was at 80K when I was looking on my preparing my notes this morning frantically. The entire crypto community disappointed with the U.S. Strategic Reserve announcement, which was the big thing about crypto supporting Trump. And as he promised, and as this show predicted, they have created a strategic reserve. And I told you the point of that reserve will be when they seize Bitcoin and other cryptos from bad actors, as they do, just like back in the day when they seized the BMW of the drug dealer, they seized the crypto. Instead of dumping that into the market, they're going to hang on to it. And since crypto is 100% supply and demand, that's a good thing. But of course, the crypto community wants the American government to be buying crypto actively on purpose as an alternative to the US dollar. And I keep telling you, that will never, ever, ever happen. The US dollar is too important to the US, to the globe, in the minds of many, many people, including the US, and they're not going to switch over to Bitcoin as a reserve currency, but that doesn't mean they have to dump it into the market. The All In podcast, I think it was last Friday. I was listening to it, still in a little bit of a haze, but they had David Sachs on, who is one of the four members of the All In podcast, but who is also now the AI and crypto czar at the White House. And he was telling a story of several years ago when they got X number of coins of Bitcoins from a seizure and they sold it. I forget all the real numbers, but the bottom line is they lost out on billions and billions of dollars by not just simply depositing that Bitcoin into a strategic reserve. So Bitcoin's down on that disappointment, although frankly it was crashing long before that, because the theme here in markets is de-risking. We got so much volatility. We don't know who's going to end up where on trade and politics, although the politics side is settling itself out a little bit. The Canadian Stock Exchange, TSX, is down this morning when I looked. Canadian dollar down a little bit when I looked. We're in a hangover. We're in a hangover period, in a transition period, and the markets are down for de-risking. Expect that to continue with the incredible uncertainty that is going on globally, with a realignment and a transition, as Trump says, from the free money. He doesn't say that part, but a transition from the free money to good management. Focus on fundamentals, focus on good businesses, buy good businesses, and you will be in good shape. Did you know, speaking of buying good business, did you know that wastes humanity wastes about 400 million tons 400 million tons of plastic every year is thrown away. Doesn't that sound like a lot? I mean, those little plastic bottles don't weigh, water bottles, they don't seem to weigh very much. 400 million tons a year of plastic is disposed of by humanity. Now, I've never been one of those plastic alarmists. I've never been one of those, the sea turtles choking on a straw. I've not really believed that we need to drink through a paper straw from McDonald's for our Diet Coke. I'm not buying any of that, or I haven't in the past, but 400 million tons is a shocking, shocking number. And you would say, but Scott, we recycle that plastic, right? I mean, when in my local community in British Columbia, Canada, go to the transfer station, and I know you don't do that where you're from. You just put the garbage down the chute or out of the curb. But I normally take it to the transfer. That's a lie. I have a guy that takes it to the transfer station. I don't do that myself. But there's like 18 different bins. You got to put this piece of garbage in. You got to put this piece of recycling in this bin, and this piece of recycling in this bin, and your plastics over here. But not that type of plastic. The soft plastics have to go over here. And you spend, half an hour trying to figure out what bin you're supposed to put your stuff into, and you're being audited. There's recycling cops there. They're not really cops, but the transfer station people figuring things out and keeping an eye on you. And you think to yourself, well, at least that's good for the world, right? I mean, we are recycling. Nope, nope. I think most of that's just a scam. 400 million tons of plastic disposed of every year. 9% is being recycled globally. 9%. And you would think, oh, well, US, Canada is much better. Nope, 9%. 9%. That's what we recycle. So we go through all of this separation of our stuff for show, which I've always known and has bothered me a lot. But we just don't recycle it. We don't have the capacity for it. So 400 million tons a year get wasted, 9% recycled. The rest goes to landfills. It's incinerated. It floats into the rivers and down into the oceans. Have you seen these big piles of plastic floating in the ocean? My daughter, a couple of years ago, did a science project on that. And she's in grade 6 now. She probably did that science project in grade 4, researched that a little bit. And I bought her, there was people in California making super cool sunglasses, and the frame was plastic and it was made out of recycled ocean waste. Thought that was cool. So you have all this plastics floating around or in landfills, and some of that, or even much of that, is turning into breaking off into microplastics, little teeny plastic particles. And they literally are so small, they float in the air, they show up in the soil, they're in water, ultimately into our food sources, into our bodies, creating who the hell knows what sort of health problems. Microplastics are expected to never, ever go away. Study estimates over 100,000 marine mammals, 100,000 marine mammals, and 1 million seabirds die every year from plastic ingestion, not injection. Maybe it is injection, but from ingestion and entanglement. 1 million seabirds, 100,000 marine mammals. What an incredible problem. So, Sinclair Range, my company, last week announced a investment into EarthProject. EarthProject is committed to protecting the planet and human health by developing solutions that eliminate plastic waste and its harmful effects. This is a startup company out of Calgary, Alberta, predominantly. And its mission is to deal with this plastic waste issue. The world is drowning in plastic. Millions of tons of waste are accumulated in landfills, oceans, ecosystems, polluting water, harming wildlife, releasing toxins that pose direct risks to human health. And the scale of this crisis is undeniable. And the solution is clear. The solution is that we have to develop a economically viable process that makes plastic waste recovery practical, scalable, and profitable. If you can make money dealing with the waste plastic, then people are going to deal with the waste plastic. If you cannot make money doing that, you're going to rely on government programs, you're going to rely on not-for-profit, and you're never going to get scalability, and you're never going to have sustainability, because governments are going to cut off the free money. And while they're doing that, they're going to cut off the money that's going to, maybe some decent projects like this. And you're going to be just letting the waste accumulate in the ocean, the plastic waste accumulate in the ocean. You need to turn this into something profitable. EarthProject thinks they have cracked the code on that. And Sinclair Range, my company, has invested, and we will be participating. I will be participating in management, capitalization, growth, and the general success of the company. So we're excited to make that announcement. Hey, Joel, thanks for joining us on Instagram. Mark Carney is the new Prime Minister of Canada. The Liberal government continues under new leadership. So we can do that in Canada. For my US audience, we don't have to have an election. All you have to do is the Prime Minister has to resign, and they just appoint somebody new. That's what they did. It's the Canadian hot swap. I told you last August, September, that was going to happen. I originally predicted it would be Chrystia Freeland that would be brought in, and someone from my Ottawa community. Hey, Ion, thanks for listening in on YouTube. Someone from my Ottawa community told me it was going to be Carney. Well, here we are. I corrected myself early on in that prediction, and here we are. Carney is, or will be, I'm not sure if it's announced yet, but he is Prime Minister. So his immediate challenge as the new Prime Minister, of course, will be dealing with trade negotiations, which is going to take lots of difficult negotiations, hard decisions, and he is an unelected Prime Minister. No one in Canada voted for this guy. Everybody voted for Trudeau. They voted for the Liberal Party, but not for Carney. And that doesn't mean he's a bad person. That doesn't mean he's going to be a bad Prime Minister, although he will. It just means that he has to radically transform Canada while being unelected, just appointed. He's the chosen Carney. That's what he is, chosen Carney. And also, he's a famous anti-Trumper and a committed globalist. This is not going to be good. This is not going to be good unless he just completely pivots and disregards his past as the World Economic Forum guy for Canada and the central banker that he is. It's not going to be a good discussion, and it's not going to be good for Canada. But right now, he is saying the right things. He's saying the right things, and let's see if it's true. More efficient trading within Canada, more infrastructure, diversifying our trading partner risk. Canada now has the greatest opportunity in my lifetime, in every Canadian's lifetime, to grow up, grow the F up, diversify economic and security risk away from the US. The US are our best friends. They're our brothers. They're our families. We should not be angry with, picking on, booing the US. We should not be doing any of that. Okay. But we can't rely on them. They have their own problems. We need to stand on our own 2 feet. That's what Canada needs to do. The opportunity is right now. We need to trade with each other more efficiently. We need to export tax every single piece of energy. That's not a good unit. Every single trade of energy to the US should be export taxed. So it costs the US some more, which is not going to make them happy, but it will generate significant tax revenue for us, which should be plowed into infrastructure for energy, for commodities, so that we can sell that energy and commodities to other countries and value added, not just not just taking our resources and sell them out at low margin because we didn't bother to do anything to them to process them. Invest in all of that. And we need to invest in our military. We need to be useful again on the world stage from a military point of view, and we should do that domestically. We should do that, build our arms, our airplanes, our ships, everything domestically. Most importantly, our drones, our UAVs. We should create an entire industry around that, because that's where things are going. And Canada has been and can be good at that business. I noted that there was a significant naval contract for building ships to Irving Shipbuilding. So that's good. So I think we're heading in that direction. But these are the things that you should be demanding from your politicians, Canadians. You should be demanding all of this. And will we get that from Carney, which the Conservatives call carbon tax Carney? I don't know. I don't know. He said he wants to drop the carbon tax on consumers, but it's just a shell game. Shocking, right? Shocking that a central banker or a banker in general would play a little shell game and define words differently and move things over here and get exactly what he wants. Anyways, he says he's going to drop the carbon tax, but that means on you as a consumer, but he's going to double down on carbon taxes on industry, specifically steel. And when asked in an interview, he said, "Oh yeah, but come on, when's the last time you bought steel?" There you go. Wall Street Journal reports that Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary. Have you heard this guy last week while I was off recovering from surgery? Howard Lutnick called Doug Ford, he's an aggressive guy, called Doug Ford, the leader, and newly elected, by the way, of Canada's Ontario province, hours after the U.S. tariffs on Canada and Mexico took effect, with an urgent demand. He wanted Ford to back off on his threats to retaliate against American levies. Ford said, "I told them where we stand. We will not budge." That wasn't. I don't like this idea of premiers off negotiating directly with the U.S. and not presenting a common front. However, in the lack of federal leadership, I certainly understand it. I don't think Ford is making the best decisions, but I like that he's creating a fuss. I like that he's threatening to cut off electricity and getting some attention. I would have handled it differently. I would sell them all the electricity they want and need. I would just charge for more, take those taxes, put them to good use on infrastructure. Like I said, that wasn't the only tense exchange Lutnick would have with Canadian leaders. Several days later, he was on a call between President Trump and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that descended into yelling and swearing. A person with knowledge of the call said he also earlier had a tense meeting with Mexican economy minister somebody on tariffs that yielded no resolutions, and more U.S. threats. When was the last time you bought steel? Well, you can't make this shit up. Yeah, exactly. I drive a car, Ion. I don't know if you drive a car or have a washing machine. I'm not sure. Maybe a sink. I used to own a company that made stainless steel sinks. Bought a lot of steel. but a lot of steel. These conversations are behind closed doors, the work of the Trump's new Commerce Secretary, who's asserted himself with Trump's blessings, according to the Wall Street Journal, as the lead negotiator of the president's gyrating trade agenda. Don't forget, anything you read in the Wall Street Journal is anti-Trump. So take this with a grain of salt. The former CEO of Wall Street firm Cantor Fitzgerald has at times appeared several times a day on cable news to unveil details of tariff moves and partial reversals. He has sometimes gone ahead of himself, like he promised. He didn't promise, but he let hint when the markets were taking a dive that maybe Trump was going to soften on the tariffs a little bit with Canada and Mexico. But so far, he's getting along well with the president. So this guy, I have a love-hate with him. So he's hyper aggressive. He is pissing people off outside of, he has a combative negotiation style. Let's put it this way. But he's also a guy, Cantor Fitzgerald, that on 9/11 lost 658 people. 658 people when the tower came down. That was his head office. And he survived for one reason. He was taking his kid to kindergarten. So he wasn't in the office. And he lost 658 people of his firm. And he rebuilt that company in 47 hours. 47 hours, they were up and running again. And he prioritized looking after the families of the fallen, his employees that were killed. By the way, does that sound like a plot from a show you've ever watched? Billions? Anybody watch Billions? I think they took it from there. So obviously an impressive guy, billionaire in his self-worth, but has gone through this life-changing event and has come out the other side and seems to have done the right things. And you have to give him great credit. But I don't understand how this pissing people off and being dishonest is a good strategy. He's on and on. I'm watching him last week in my drug-fused haze. He says, this is not a trade war. It's not a trade war. It's a drug war. It's not a trade war. It's a drug war. Over and over again, everything I listened to and watched. This is about fentanyl. And then every now and then, not often, most times the news people would just nod along and go, yeah, I buy into that framing. It's a drug war. And then someone once would say, hey, well, what about these new tariffs coming on April 2, the reciprocal tariffs? Oh, yeah. Those are different tariffs. These tariffs are a drug war. So like the whole pitch is fix your border, stop the drugs. That'll stop these tariffs. But, 3 weeks from now, a whole bunch of new tariffs are coming. Because what? Because like I've told you, this will never stop until someone stands up and makes it stop. Someone from the Canadian side. It will never stop, ever. Right? So we have to stand up. And the answer to that is for Canada to grow up. This guy, Lutnick, he was on TV accusing Canadians of being dishonest because we have a sales tax, HST, GST. He says that sales tax, that value-added tax is a sneaky tariff. Is a sneaky tariff. That's his positioning on that, which is so stupid. I don't even know how to talk about it, honestly. And then he calls Canada for being sneaky and dishonest because of their sales tax. This isn't going well, folks. This is not going well for Canada at all. It's because of a lack of leadership. Demand from your leaders. Pick up the phone, send an email that they earn more respect, diversify risk, diversify economic risk, diversify security risk. Do you think Carney's going to do that? Well, he is a globalist and a climate change activist, so it's tough to say that that's going to go the way that we hope it is going to go. Hey, thanks for joining us on YouTube, everybody. All right, what else do we have? Globe and Mail reports. We're not just having a drug war and a trade war with the US. Globe and Mail reports that, folks, is the Canadian Wall Street Journal. It's the way my US audience can think about that China hits Canada with new tariffs on agriculture, food products in response to the electric vehicle levy, which I believe was last August, piling on pressure onto the Canadian economy, already suffering disruption due to new U.S. tariffs. China on Saturday imposed new levies against 3.7 billion worth of Canadian agricultural and food products in a long-awaited response to a decision last August where Canada imposed 100% tariffs on EVs. Beijing said it was introducing equivalent levies on Canadian canola oil, oil cakes, and pea imports, as well as a 25% duty on Canadian pork and aquatic products. Not sure what an aquatic product is, but there you go. It's being tariffed in China. Do you know how bored I am talking about tariffs? This is just every day tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. And I'm running a little bit out of time. So I'm going to skip to the last part of this story. What the Globe and Mail suggests, talking to a number of Chinese officials, is that this is really China positioning to negotiate. They think that Canada might be willing to have better trade relations with China right now because Canada is being beat up by the US. And I think that they're right. China is right. I don't know if the Globe and Mail's right on that, but I think Canada and China should be good friends. We should be good friends. Canada, these EV levies were because Biden asked Trudeau to match what the US was doing. And Trudeau said, yeah, sure. The Chinese seem to hate me anyways. They hate us. They hate Trudeau because Trudeau has positioned himself as standoffish with China because he's been urged to do that by the Democrats in Congress in the US. Canada moralizes and insults. And there may be good reason to moralize and insult the Chinese, but we have no standing to do that. We have no respect. We have no respect left on the world stage. When I was a kid, as a Canadian, you could travel the world with a Canadian flag pin on your bag. Not that I ever carried a backpack, but you could. You could. In fact, Americans used to do that, so they weren't perceived as being Americans. All that's gone. All that's gone. No one cares about Canada anymore on the global stage, and that is largely due to Trudeau. And you can't moralize against bad acts that you see from trading partners if you have no standing, if you have no respect. All it does is hurt Canadians, which is what has happened. The answer to US trade negotiations is to have options. The option is China. That's who we should be selling commodities, oil to everybody, India, everybody. We should be selling to everybody. But China is the second largest trading partner of Canada. It's the obvious choice. Talk to your politicians, demand better relations with Canada. The time is, with China, the time is right now. Hudson Bay, large retailer in Canada, is closing about half of its 80 stores in a restructuring plan. It has filed CCAA, a Canadian equivalent to Chapter 11. Again, I'm going to cut to the chase on this one because we are running out of time. I didn't shoot. I wrote yesterday, spent about 10 hours writing Module 4 to my business course. And Module 4 to the business course is about the math of profitability. Okay. And the business course is intended for entrepreneurs, founders, medium and small business owner managers, people that are looking for something a little more academic but practical. The strategies that I have used for 30, 35 years in turning businesses around, trying to make more money and raise capital. And one of the things I was writing about yesterday was the reducing your fixed costs. And your fixed costs sort of break into discretionary fixed costs and contractual fixed costs. Discretionary fixed costs would be things like marketing expense. If you're a D2C company, you spend and commit to X dollars a year on your marketing. Well, that was a discretionary yet fixed cost expense. Fixed in the sense that if you sell 100 units or if you sell 200 units, the amount of the dollar spent on the marketing doesn't change, right? The efficiency changed, but the amount didn't change. Unlike, say, direct materials, if you sell 100 units or 200 units, the amount of direct materials expense goes up accordingly. And so you have discretionary fixed costs, which you can obviously use your discretion to not spend as much money on that category. And you have contractual fixed costs, which is like a lease, long story short. And a lease is something you're stuck with. Have you ever tried to go to your landlord and say, hey, man, I can't afford to pay this. Can I get out of this early and not pay a penalty? And That doesn't work, right? I mean, you can get some negotiation sometimes with the right landlord if the interests are aligned, but for the most part, you're stuck in a contract. But you're not stuck. You can restructure through bankruptcy court out of fixed contracts. Why do you think retailers are always filing bankruptcy? To get out of bad leases. That's a primary driver because you can break through contracts. If you're stuck in a negative contract, you don't have to die on that hill. All right, I want to wrap up quickly. I want to tell you tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Eastern, I think, is the release of episode 0 of a brand new podcast. A brand new podcast. Amazing. It's called The Grow. And what it is a weekly dive into the cannabis business, where we're going to explore the hypothesis that the industry has bottomed. This is globally, this is not a Canadian thing. Obviously, it'll focus mostly on US and Canada, but globally, the industry has bottomed is the hypothesis. There's a path to profitability. There's a path to cash flow. You can create shareholder value. You can create liquidity. And the answer to success lies in fundamentals, business fundamentals, like I've been talking about in the business course, linked to that in the notes, and controlling the things that can be controlled. What cannot be controlled? Government regulation cannot be controlled. Consumer preference. Every week in the cannabis business, someone will come to you if you're running a company and say, oh, wow, this type of product is hot right now. And every one of those changes to deliver that sort of hot product requires different capital expenditures, different supply chains. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. We're not talking about that. We're talking about business fundamentals. The podcast is not about cannabis production, regulation, or industry trends. The Grow is about cash flow, restructuring, raising capital, building real shareholder value. Every episode will cover practical strategies to help operators and investors navigate this market effectively. So that's coming out. We're excited about that. The Grow, something about cannabis. I don't remember the full title, but The Grow, and it will be available on everywhere that you listen to podcasts and YouTube. I shot episode 0, the introduction, yesterday, and it will be out Tuesday morning. So go find it. Go find it. I think it takes a day or two to populate. Part of an episode 0 is you're not only introducing the podcast, but you're populating the hosting services. So it might take a day to do that. A reminder, the theme of 2025, what is our theme, everyone? Defense wins championships. Defense wins championships. Go back to first principles, do your homework, do your accounting, file your taxes, all that sort of stuff. That's what you need to do. Defense wins championships. That's our theme for the year. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm happy I got through this. I'll see you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Cheers.